The stars burned like cold fire, but there was no beauty left in them, only a chilling, pervasive fear. The Valorian alliance, once the rulers of half the galaxy, was on the brink of collapse. Their mighty fleets were now just scattered remnants. Their vibrant worlds, once beacons of civilization, were now burning embers. And the enemy, the relentless Xelthar Swarm, just kept coming, an endless, devouring tide. Admiral Sarath stood on the bridge of his command ship, the last bastion of hope, his eyes fixed on the holographic map. It was a canvas of despair. Every single red dot was a lost world, a home, a memory erased. Every flash of light was another defeat, another voice silenced forever. He watched as the galaxy, the home his people had built over millennia, slipped through their fingers like sand. "We can't stop them," whispered Captain Lurea beside him, her voice barely audible above the hum of the ship. "Every planet we tried to defend is gone within days. Their numbers. There's just no end." Sarath remained silent, his jaw tight. He had seen the aftermath. He had seen what the Xelthar did to the worlds they conquered. They didn't just win, they consumed. Planets were stripped down to their very core. Cities turned to dust, and the skies choked with the black, alien spores of the swarm. The Valorians were a proud warrior race, forged in the fires of countless conflicts over centuries. But this enemy was different. It didn't negotiate. It didn't feel fear. It didn't stop. It only consumed. For the first time in their long and storied history, the Valorians faced not just defeat, but total extinction. A heavy, suffocating silence filled the bridge, broken only by the quiet hum of the life support systems. Then, a single voice, old and trembling, cut through the tension. "There is one species left we haven't called upon," said an old strategist, his voice shaking with the weight of his suggestion. Sarath turned sharply, his gaze piercing. "You mean them?" The old strategist gave a slow, somber nod. "Yes, Admiral. The humans." A nervous murmur rippled across the bridge. The name was taboo, a legend whispered in hushed tones. Everyone knew the stories of the primitive, chaotic race from the forgotten edge of the Orion Arm, the creatures of fire and fury. Long ago, they were deemed too dangerous, too unpredictable for galactic warfare, and were banned from interstellar conflicts after the horrors of the Titan conflict. Even the Galactic Council, the ultimate authority, feared them. "They are dangerous," Lurea stated, her voice firm. "Unpredictable, violent." "Exactly," the strategist replied, his voice a low, steady whisper. "And maybe, just maybe, that is precisely what we need right now." Sarath's eyes returned to the holographic map, to the relentless crimson tide of the Xelthar. The enemy was closing in. Within weeks, the Valorian capital itself would fall. He clenched his jaw, every disciplined instinct in his body screaming that this was madness, a desperate gamble that could backfire spectacularly. But what other choice did they have? There were no other cards left to play. "Send a message," Sarath commanded, his voice resonating with a final grim authority, to Earth. The words hung heavy in the air, like the deep rumble of thunder before a storm. And across the unfathomable distances of the galaxy, hidden behind layers of forgotten space and cosmic dust, a small, unassuming blue planet received a transmission it hadn't heard in centuries. Ancient, dormant satellite systems sputtered back to life. Deep in an underground bunker somewhere on Earth, long, silent alarms began to shriek. "Unknown signal coming in," reported a young operator, her eyes wide. It's alien." High above, in a command center that had monitored the silent stars for generations, a military commander read the translated plea for help. His eyes narrowed, a faint, almost predatory smile touching the corners of his mouth. "So," he murmured to himself, "they want us to fight their war for them. After all these years?" Outside, a real storm gathered. Thunder rolled across the horizon and lightning split the sky. The Earth had been quiet for a very long time, but humanity's fire, its chaotic and indomitable spirit, had never truly gone out. It had only been slumbering. And now, in the deep, cold void between the stars, something ancient, something wild, began to wake. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story and want to see what happens next, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next part. I can't wait to see you in the next one. We were so powerful, so utterly devastating in the last war, that after we wiped out 3-star empires, the rest of the universe decided to just leave us alone. No calls, no visits, nothing. Earth became a silent, isolated world, a ghost in the galactic community. Then, one day, a message arrives. It spreads across the globe in hours, a desperate plea broadcast on all channels. It's from the Valorian Alliance, one of the oldest, most advanced civilizations out there. They're in trouble, big trouble, and they're calling us for help. In a hidden command center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Mason Reed listens to the shaky voice of the Valorian ambassador. He's seen the fear in their eyes. "They're losing," Mason says grimly. Standing beside him, Dr. Aisha Tran, our top scientist, pulls up the files on the enemy. "The Xelthar Swarm," she murmurs. "They don't negotiate, they don't show mercy, they just consume everything. Planets, ships, entire species." Mason looks at the screen, a slow, cold smile spreading across his face. "Then they've come to the right place." And just like that, something awakens. All across the planet, ancient war machines begin to stir. Dormant factories, sleeping giants of industry, roar back to life for the first time in centuries. Orbital shipyards, dark and silent for generations, light up the night sky. Deep beneath the oceans, the old war AIs, the ones we promised never to use again, start whispering to each other in coded language. The galaxy made us promise to lock away our most terrifying weapons. Well, the locks are coming off. Meanwhile, far away in the Valorian capital, the council is in chaos. "The humans are monsters!" one elder screams. "They burn entire worlds just to win a battle," but another fires back. "Would you rather be eaten alive by the swarm? At least the humans fight for a reason." The argument is cut short when their top admiral, Sarath, enters the chamber. "The humans have answered," he announces, his voice cutting through the noise. "They are sending a force. They promised results." A few days later, the first human ships arrive in Valorian space. They're nothing like the sleek, elegant vessels of other races. Ours are dark, jagged, and imposing. They're not built for diplomacy or exploration. They are built for one purpose: destruction. A young Valorian pilot looks at his screen in disbelief, whispering, "Are those even ships? They look more like beasts." On the bridge of the flagship, the Iron Dawn, General Mason stands before a holographic map of the war. "Targets confirmed," an officer reports. "The main Xelthar hive is 3 light years out." Mason's smile widens. "All right then," he commands, his voice echoing with grim determination. "Let's remind the galaxy why they were so afraid of us." The engines ignite, a terrifying scream that tears through the silence of space. The human fleet vanishes, warping directly toward the heart of the swarm. For the first time in a long, long time, the Valorians feel a flicker of hope. But with that hope comes a chilling memory, an old galactic warning that now feels more real than ever. When you call upon humanity for aid, you don't just invite soldiers to your war. You awaken war itself. The human fleet appeared at the edge of the Xelthar-controlled sector, black, silent, and utterly terrifying. Unlike other fleets whose hulls gleamed in the starlight, these ships absorbed the light, moving like immense shadows drifting through the void. On the command bridge of the flagship, the Iron Dawn, General Mason Reed watched the enemy approach. The holographic display was a living ocean of red dots, billions of them, each one a Xelthar ship hungry for destruction. "They're coming!" Lieutenant Vega's voice was steady, but his knuckles were white as he gripped the console. Mason simply nodded. Let them come. For centuries, humanity had withdrawn from the galactic stage. They had become a memory, a forgotten power. The galaxy had forgotten what humans were truly capable of. Today, the swarm was about to get a history lesson they would never forget. The Xelthar ships surged forward, their dark forms spreading across space like a plague. They unleashed energy bursts so bright they burned through the darkness like newborn suns. But the human fleet remained still, a patient, calculating predator waiting for the perfect moment to strike. "Impact in 10 seconds, Vega announced, his voice tight with anticipation. Mason raised a single hand. "Activate Project Revenant." A low, bone-deep hum vibrated through the iron dawn. Deep within the core of every human ship, ancient and terrible machines awakened. The black armor plating of the fleet shifted and unfolded, revealing weapon systems the galaxy had never seen, massive cannons pulsing with the contained fury of dark fusion. Then came the sound, a deep, thunderous pulse that echoed the oldest, most primal language of humanity, war. "Fire!" Mason commanded, and space itself exploded. Brilliant beams of blue-white energy ripped through the Xelthar Swarm, vaporizing thousands of their ships in the blink of an eye. The shockwave was a wave of pure destruction, a wildfire consuming everything in its path. From a safe distance, Valorian observers watched, their jaws agape. No fleet in history had ever stood against the swarm and done more than just survive. "What? What kind of weapons are those?" A Valorian commander whispered into the stunned silence of his bridge. No one had an answer. The battle raged. The Xelthar, realizing their initial assault had failed, changed tactics. They sent millions of smaller kamikaze drones crashing against the human fleet. But the Iron Dawn's shields glowed a defiant crimson, holding strong against the onslaught. Every attack was met with a relentless wall of human firepower, each shot a calculated act of annihilation. Then, Mason gave his next order. "Deploy the ground teams." From the fleet's lower decks, thousands of dark pods launched towards the nearest infected planet. They hit the surface like meteorites, shaking the very ground. From the wreckage, human soldiers emerged. They were armored like walking tanks, their eyes glowing ominously behind their helmets. They didn't speak, they didn't shout. They moved as one, a single, unstoppable force. On the ground, the Xelthar creatures rushed to meet them, a horrifying horde of claws, teeth, and wings. But the humans didn't falter. They fought with cold, brutal precision. Grenades, plasma rifles, and flamethrowers turned the battlefield into a vision of hell, purging the alien infestation with terrifying efficiency. A Valorian scout ship in high orbit recorded everything, every moment of the calculated slaughter. When the Valorian Council reviewed the footage, a deep unease settled over them. "These humans," one of the elders said, his voice barely a whisper. "They're not fighting to survive. They are fighting to win." By the end of the day, the once teeming planet was silent. Not a single Xelthar remained. A world had been cleansed. Back aboard the Iron Dawn, Mason looked out at the star-dusted void. "Send the message," he ordered calmly. "To whom, sir?" asked Vega. "To everyone," Mason replied, his voice echoing with the weight of ages. "Tell them, humanity is back." The message shot across the galaxy, a beacon of defiance in the dark. Every race, every civilization heard it. For some, it brought a glimmer of hope. For others, a new and profound fear. And somewhere, deep in the heart of the darkness, the Xelthar Queen hissed, a sound of pure rage and dawning horror. "They have awakened the destroyers," she whispered to her court. "Now, the real war begins." The news of humanity's victory spread faster than the speed of light. Across the galaxy, species like the Valorians, who had cowered for centuries, called it a miracle. The Xelthar Swarm, an unstoppable plague of organic ships and ravenous creatures, had never been defeated, never even been slowed down. Yet the humans, newcomers to the galactic stage, had stopped them cold, in a single day. In war rooms and council chambers across a dozen star systems, galactic leaders watched the battle recordings in stunned silence. The humans fought like no other species they had ever encountered. Their fleets didn't wait for orders from some distant high command light years away. Their ships didn't maneuver with cautious precision. Instead, they acted with a raw, unified ferocity, as if the universe itself owed them this victory. They threw themselves at the enemy with a terrifying blend of strategic genius and sheer brute force. On Valoria Prime, the seat of the Galactic Council, the mood was electric. For the first time in months, the weight of impending doom had lifted. The generals, who had grown old drawing up plans for managed retreats, were now smiling. "Humanity has done it," one general declared, his voice filled with pride and relief. "They engaged a fully formed Xelthar hive and annihilated it in under 12 standard hours, but not everyone was celebrating." Elder Tareth, the oldest and wisest among them, watched the recordings with a deep frown etched on his ancient face. "Yes, they won," he said, his voice a low rumble that cut through the cheerful chatter. The room fell quiet. "But have you truly watched how they won? They turned an entire planet into a ball of superheated glass and ash." He gestured to the screen where a once green world now glowed a dull, angry red. "The humans call their final weapon a purification protocol," Tareth continued, his gaze sweeping across the now uncomfortable council members. "But what I see looks less like purification and more like extinction." The other leaders shifted in their seats, choosing to ignore his somber words. They desperately needed hope, not another warning. But deep down, a new kind of fear was taking root. Humans never fought halfway. When they went to war, they didn't stop until there was nothing left of their enemy. Nothing at all. Far from the comforts of Valoria, aboard the human flagship, the Iron Dawn, General Mason Reed stared at the galactic map. A crimson stain of red dots, Xelthar hives, spread across half the galaxy like a cosmic disease. "How many more worlds are this infested?" he asked, his voice rough. Dr. Aisha Tran, head of xenobiology, brought up a new projection. "Our long-range scans have confirmed over 200 more hive worlds, General, and the swarm is expanding faster than our models predicted." Mason let out a heavy sigh. "Then we'll just have to burn faster." He felt no pride in the planetary obliteration he had just ordered. But he knew, with chilling certainty, that mercy had no place in this war. The Xelthar didn't understand peace. They didn't negotiate. They only understood consumption, and they only respected fire. Just then, a soft alarm blinked on his console, an incoming transmission from the Valorian Council. Mason patched it through. Elder Tareth's face appeared, his expression colder than the vacuum of space. "Your power is undeniable, General," Tareth began, foregoing any pleasantries. "But your methods, they are extreme. You destroyed an entire biosphere. Not a single microbe survived, let alone the native flora and fauna." Mason's gaze was unflinching. "That's the point, Elder. The Xelthar Swarm doesn't leave any life behind. Why should we give them the chance to regroup on a world we spared?" Tareth looked visibly unsettled. "If you continue fighting like this, General, you might win your war, but there won't be a galaxy left to save." Mason ended the transmission without another word. He turned to Dr. Tran. "Prepare the fleet for the next strike." She hesitated, a rare sign of doubt on her face. "Sir, perhaps the Council has a point. We're crossing lines we once swore we never would." Mason's eyes hardened, reflecting the cold starlight outside. We crossed those lines the second we answered their desperate call for help. Outside the viewport, the mighty human fleet blazed a trail across the void, a river of steel and fire heading toward the next infected world. Meanwhile, on a distant, darkened planet at the heart of the swarm, the Hive Queen stirred within her massive birthing chamber. Her psychic consciousness, a silent scream that connected billions of her children, rippled across the stars. "The destroyers of flesh have returned," she hissed into the minds of her brood. "They burn without reason, they kill without feeding, find their origin, and devour their world." In response, a unified shriek from 1,000,000,000,000 throats echoed through the cosmos. The stars themselves began to darken as the full might of the swarm turned its attention toward a single, insignificant blue planet. The humans had won the first battle, but now the real war was about to begin. And back on Earth, in hidden bunkers and forgotten sub-oceanic facilities, ancient defense systems began to reactivate. Long-dormant AIs whispered old command codes. Project Phoenix, Project Oblivion, all awakening to a fundamental truth humanity had always known. If war comes for them, they do not run. They rise. We thought we had won. Our first victory against the Xelthar Swarm was a beacon of hope for the galaxy. But victory brought attention. The Xelthar Queen, stung by her loss, no longer waged small wars. She wanted revenge. A whisper spread across the void, and from the darkest corners of space, her children awakened. Trillions strong, the swarm began to move. But not toward our allies, the Valorians. This time, they were coming for Earth. "They're coming for us," Dr. Aisha Tran said, her voice barely a whisper as she stared at the holographic map. The display showed an ocean of red stretching across half the galaxy, a living storm of ships all pointed at our home. I stood beside her, my heart pounding a steady, grim rhythm. "Good," I said, my voice rough. "Let them come." But I knew the truth. This wasn't a battle, it was an apocalypse. If they reached Earth, humanity was finished. Panic erupted on Valoria Prime. Their council was in chaos. "They've changed direction, straight toward the human homeworld," an officer cried. For the first time, the proud Valorians, the same ones who had watched us fight their battles, offered help. Fleets, weapons, supplies. A desperate gesture, but we all knew it might be too little, too late. Our own fleet gathered at the edge of the Sol system, a motley collection of old and new ships, a testament to our stubborn survival. Orbital cannons powered up, moon bases prepared for the worst. On the bridge of the flagship, the Iron Dawn, I looked at the faces of my crew. They were exhausted, but their eyes held no fear, only determination. "This is not just our war anymore," I announced, my voice echoing in the tense silence. "The galaxy watched us burn for others. Now they'll watch how humanity defends its own." I turned to Aisha. "Activate Project Phoenix." She hesitated. "Sir, if we use Phoenix, there's no going back." "I know," I said, my gaze fixed on the approaching storm. "But Earth is all we have." Deep within our planet, something ancient awakened. Satellites formed a massive energy web across the sky, and the cold voices of forgotten AIs filled the comms. Defense Protocol Alpha engaged. Then they arrived. The Xelthar Swarm blotted out the stars, turning the night sky blood red. "Hold positions!" I roared. The first wave hit our defense line like a physical blow. Explosions lit up space as ships on both sides were vaporized in seconds. For every one of our ships that fell, we took 10 of theirs with us. Alarms screamed, shields buckled, but we did not break. "Keep firing!" I yelled. "We don't stop!" In the heart of the chaos, Aisha fully unleashed Project Phoenix. For a single, terrifying moment, everything went silent. Then, a beam of pure energy erupted from Earth itself, a blade of light that sliced through the darkness, vaporizing thousands of swarm ships instantly. When the light faded, a vast emptiness hung in space. But this was not the end. I could feel it. The Queen was still out there, and in the depths of the void, her promise echoed in my mind, a chilling whisper of what was to come. "You burned my children, human. Now I will burn your son." The war for Earth was over, or so we thought. The space around our home planet was a graveyard, glowing with the embers of 1,000,000 defeated Xelthar ships. We had won, but the silence was heavy, filled with loss. Then, from the deepest, darkest void, something stirred. It was a signal so immense, so powerful it defied all our scanners. The Xelthar Queen had arrived. Her ship wasn't a ship, it was alive, a colossal creature of bone and shadow, larger than our moon, pulsating with a malevolent glow. Its every move made the fabric of space itself tremble. On the bridge of the flagship, the Iron Dawn, alarms screamed. "Unknown signal detected," Vega, our comms officer, shouted. "It's massive, too big to be a ship." Dr. Aisha, our lead scientist, stared at the screen, her voice shaking. "That's not a ship, that's her." General Mason Reed, commander of the fleet, watched the monstrous shape emerge from the darkness. "So the Queen finally came to finish it." Suddenly, her voice crashed through our comms, a psychic thunder that shook every soul. "You fight like gods, but you are still flesh. You destroy, but cannot create. You are a mistake of nature. Now you die with your world." Mason didn't flinch. "We've been called worse," he muttered, then turned to his crew, his voice a beacon of defiance. "All ships, focus fire on the Queen." The human fleet moved as one. Thousands of cannons unleashed a storm of blue-white energy, tearing through the void. The beams struck the Queen, and her massive body shuddered, but she didn't fall. Instead, she unleashed her true swarm. Millions of fresh Xelthar poured from her like a river of death, crashing against our lines. Shields shattered, hulls buckled. Space, once again, was on fire. "Sir, the line is breaking!" Vega cried out. "Hold it!" Mason roared. "We stop her here or we stop nowhere!" But her power was absolute. Her energy blasts ripped through our capital ships as if they were paper. Even the mighty Iron Dawn groaned under the assault. Aisha's hands flew across her console. "We can't keep this up. Her power is regenerating faster than we can damage her. We need something stronger." Mason's eyes hardened. He knew what had to be done. "Then we use it. Project Oblivion." Aisha froze, her face pale. "Sir, that will destroy half the system." Mason's voice was grim. "I know." A long, terrible pause, then she nodded. "Activating Oblivion." Far below, in Earth's orbit, a network of dormant satellites awakened. A dark energy grid formed, a web not of defense but of annihilation. When the Queen saw it, she screamed, a sound of pure rage that cracked our comms. "You would destroy yourselves to stop me?" Mason's reply was calm, cold steel. "We already did that once. We can do it again." The countdown began. 10, 9, 8. The Queen's final, desperate attack hit the Iron Dawn, massive beams carving through the hull. "Mason!" Aisha yelled over the chaos. "We're not going to survive this!" Mason offered a faint, weary smile. "We weren't meant to." He looked at the final command prompt. 3, 2, 1. He pressed it. A wave of pure, silent white light erupted from Earth's orbit. It expanded in an instant, a wave of nothingness that disintegrated everything in its path. The Xelthar Swarm vanished like dust in the wind. The Queen's colossal body cracked and crumbled, her final scream dissolving into the void. When the light faded, there was only silence. Half the human fleet was gone. Earth's orbit was empty, quiet, peaceful. But deep within the dissolving husk of the Queen, a single glowing egg pulsed with life, a promise of a new nightmare yet to come. The war was over. Silence finally returned to the galaxy. The all-consuming swarm was gone, its queen destroyed in a final cataclysmic explosion. But the cost was immense. Half of humanity's fleet, gone in an instant. On Earth, entire cities lay scarred by the shockwave that rippled across space. The planet survived, but only just. Aboard the ruined bridge of the flagship, the Iron Dawn, General Mason Reed stared into the void. The ship drifted, a ghost among wreckage. Beside him, Dr. Aisha Tran, her uniform torn and face etched with exhaustion, whispered, "It's over." Mason shook his head, a heavy, slow movement. "No, it's never really over." The stars seemed brighter, more peaceful now, but he knew that peace was always a temporary guest. Humanity had learned to always prepare for the next storm. Weeks passed. The Allied Valorian fleet arrived, expecting to find a dead world. Instead, they discovered a hive of activity. Humans were already rebuilding. Factories hummed back to life, repairing ships, restoring cities, and honoring their fallen. The Valorian elder, Tareth, walked the recovering surface, and as he watched humans working side by side amidst the ruins, a new feeling took root: respect. He found Aisha overseeing a reconstruction site. "You burned half your world to save the rest," he said, his voice filled with awe. Aisha simply nodded. "That's what we do. When the galaxy goes dark, someone has to be the one to light the fire again." Tareth looked at her, a long, contemplative gaze. "You are dangerous, Dr. Tran, but you are also hope." He returned to his council with a declaration that would echo through history. If the galaxy ever faces death again, call the humans. They do not surrender. They endure. Years turned into decades. The swarm became a legend, a story told across countless star systems. The name humanity was whispered on alien worlds, a word that was both a prayer and a warning. Some feared them, some admired them, but none forgot them. But legends never truly die. Far away, on a desolate, forgotten world, a single overlooked egg left behind by the swarm queen began to crack. A tiny creature emerged, looking up at the stars, but its eyes weren't the cold black of the swarm. They were blue, human blue, and in a voice that didn't belong to a monster, it whispered, "Mother, where are they?" Back on Earth, a rebuilt and stronger Iron Dawn gleamed under the sun. General Mason Reed stood before a new generation of soldiers, their faces full of determination. "We are not gods," he declared, his voice ringing with conviction. "We are not monsters. We are humans." He paused, a faint smile touching his lips. "And when the galaxy calls for help again, we will answer." Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more tales from across the cosmos. Until next time, stay curious.